Yeah, we got yeah, this is basically part two of Martin's PayPal request. I think not Tommy Mars, the other guy. I think he commented in the thing, but then I don't know because people use people's names on YouTube. Elvis Presley commented on one of his videos the other day. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. Anyway, part two. Let's go.
I wouldn't go there. But the thing what he said to me that killed me was, well, next time carry a knife. And I said,
Oh yeah.
if they saw the glint of steel, I wouldn't be here. And he just smiled, this weird look at me. You know?
He was working on you.
He was working on me, right?
Now here's the thing. Jerry brings up this quote that he's puzzled by, or he likes it. Frank says, "I don't believe in trying to have love. I take love as assumed, and I want to go beyond love." Maybe that's his data concept of marriage, but he wants to get into the beyond, become a machine, but it can be very anthropomorphic, or human satisfaction getting beyond trying to. In other words, don't take things personally, is what Frank's saying in the band. Don't take it personally. We're working our ass off here, and
right.
we don't. You don't need my praise, he's saying.
But let me qualify this.
Okay.
Don't take it personally. But I'll tell you one thing. He would salivate when someone would take it personally for entertainment reasons.
That's right.
I mean, whenever there was the little sore thumb in the band, whether it was Arthur or Nectar, Scott Tunis, you know what I mean?
That's how he'd be the mirror.
It was like he would just put these pieces on the chess table, man.
He'd test you. That's what I mean.
And he would just love it. He would love it.
But that's what I mean. He was testing you to see how much you could take it personally and not freak out and not be Jeff Simmons and leave the band.
When you say this love as taken,
granted,
taking it for granted there, and then let's just leave that part of the equation there and see what's beyond this. That is such a deep thought, man, because our perception of things, as many of us believe, is an illusion. It's merely our perception of things versus what it really is.
Yeah.
You know, I had this thought one night about 5 years ago. I'm out on the grass someplace in the valley, and it was a particularly clear night. And I look up, and I can see, for LA, a lot of stars. And the thought came to me, Bob, that when it's dark, actually, when it's light out,
and nighttime now?
No.
When it's day.
In other words, I was seeing the stars, and I studied astronomy, and I loved it. That's my real clock, is the sky.
Right.
But in the daytime, when the sun is shining, and I can see those glasses, and I can see that that's white, and I see my view because of the way the sun is.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that, and I think that this is my world.
Yeah.
I think this is it. And the sun is illuminating everything and showing me that. But in the nighttime, when it's dark and I can't see anything, then I get a chance to see what it really is.
Right.
Because it's dark, and then I see, holy Christ, this is the moon. You can't see the moon in the day unless it's
blinded by the
flashlight. You can't see the stars.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You've seen 100 suns.
And it opened my mind up to my perception of things is really an illusion. It just hit me like that. And what Frank was saying about love is a given, and then let's find out what this thing is.
Get rid of the sun. Let's make the water turn black. That's the night.
Bingo.
The night, then the long night of the iron sausage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, man. And it turns you around to think that our perception of love, which is sort of a common denominator, it's, to me, you can never love enough, but if you always love at one level, or you give it too much power, you never see what's beyond love. And I'm treading on treacherous ground here.
Yeah,
but I like that. I like being on the edge.
The envelope here.
And Frank, Frank, I would never say was a loving person.
Right.
Frank, even to himself, wasn't a loving person.
Right.
But love manifested itself with him in his quest. There was the knowing of the mystery was Frank's love.
And knowing that the universe works, even though he seemed to destroy every system or some way of looking at it, he still had faith. That's the deeply religious kid that was in him, the real Catholic, you know what I mean? He got insulted by the perversion of this mystical thing as a kid that the regular Society of the Vatican, which was his enemy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, really perverted.
Mm-hmm.
He said once in one of his books, it might have been once on being a Catholic, Peter Archer Gross's book, he talks about he really gets pissed off that there are kids who have grown up in this world and they have a mystical thing, and then when it doesn't jive with the adult world, and then that leads to
Bam.
schizophrenia and all kinds
Any
of
kind
things.
of pathological thing.
I saw that an Eastern mystic basically say that if the West doesn't recapture its spiritual side, it will destroy not just itself but everything else. And I do agree with that. I do agree with that. It's the same as like I've watched so many things like of psychiatrists talking, and they all like every different kind of genre of psychiatrist and do you know what I mean, people that work in that field will tell you that each child is born its own unique genius, its own uniqueness. But going through the school system takes that out of every child. Like, yeah. And like, do you know what I mean? That's not like some crazy out there hippie fault. These are like people that study the mind and see children and then see what happens. So yeah, I 100% agree with that.
He was able to keep his childlike innocence and mystery, and he had a faith. He was really describing God, updating God. That's what he was doing. Fulcanelli,
That's
you know,
right.
alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
He was updating it for us. Now okay, so you were, well, we get sidetracked. What were you, you're looking at the dark.
Before we change subject on that, what he was saying there, get the Nick Cave Faith, Hope, Carnage book. Honestly, it's such a good, well, I listened to the audio book. Lydia got me the audio book, but it's so great because he talks about God and kind of, well, he's a man that wrote the line, I don't believe in an interventionist God. Um, but yeah, he talks about God and saying that all his songs are religious, even the ones when you think they're not. There's a thing, and that he says music comes out of faith and God. Like, I'm not explaining it well. Just get that book if you it was into what them two was just saying. Then get Nick Cave's book, and yeah, it's just it's all pretty much this type of deal.
Okay, and Frank always worked in the night generally, in the early years, at the night. So, what would you develop on that? Do you want to say more about your vision?
No, but it was just the main concept was just that what we see as our reality is many times limiting us because it's an illusion.
Right, now that's a cliche of philosophy, you know. But the point is that the magician comes in with a new way to show you the illusion that you're not even aware of. That it's been further sophisticated by Rumpelstiltskin. You know what I mean?
Let me just qualify that when I say that this illusion that that the spoon feeding of sunlight and clarity that we see our perception of things, yes, to me that is an illusion. It's a mindset of our planet, but to get beyond that and see that you have to like be not afraid to have your eyes closed, man, and just go in the dark, because that is where it really is. Then you can see what's important. Go for the dark. Then the light that's there is light in dark.
Now this
hold it.
This goes with science today, with scientists trying to find dark matter and saying dark matter is where the answers to the universe are.
Getting dangerous.
No, this is good.
Getting dangerous.
But you're quoting. Let me tell
Jerry.
you. Let me tell you who you're quoting. Is that
also goes with what Jordan Peterson will say is in terms of a human being, that you have to go to your darkest, to kind of come out on top a stronger person, and that in the darkness there is light. Like you have to have your darkness and be friends with your darkness almost. But yeah.
It's exactly right, and Frank had that. And so who in the 60s was the guy saying, go blind? His metaphor for going into the dark. Frank was operating. That's the big no concept, or the conceptual continuity. So he looked for it to manifest so he could use. So who shows up in the late 60s writing poetry saying, we should all be blind. We should make the water turn dark. Jim Morrison.
Jim, baby.
And who does he want to put into Captain Beefheart versus the Red People, the late 60s? Is Grace Slick and Jim Morrison. He would take, it's like, he...
Do you know what, yeah? I'll say something. I don't normally talk about this type of thing, but I did acid once, yeah, the first time I did it. And it's funny them saying Jim Morrison, because I thought about Jim Morrison one day, was talking about that. And when Jim Morrison, well, the doors in itself, when the doors of perception are cleansed, man will see things as they truly are, infinite. And then he talks, Jim Morrison also, like, but anyway, doing acid, like, and obviously he was a big acid head, was Jim Morrison. But the first time I did it, it was like I saw for the first, like, that everything I kind of thought, I kind of, yeah, it basically give you the feeling of what you always felt. It's crazy, but yeah, the doors of perception are cleansed. It really is like that. The walls that you have built up over your life are cleansed by that.
Take someone who was saying to him, and he would then push it further than they realized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what you're getting. You're getting close to describing what Frank did, what he did. That's why he took all media. He took all sensory data.
Well, you know what? Let's even you started like talking about. Am I interrupting you?
No. Am I interrupting you too much?
Yes. No.
You get dangerous. Let's make the kitchen dangerous and what dangerous.
You say that and Frank loved to work in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great illusion.
Yeah. It's an illusion.
But that many people have. Yes, he many times
You mean
woke
a
up.
illusion or
No,
IL?
Yeah. In illusion, because it wasn't that way. Many times Frank would be working at 7 in the morning.
I know. I found out later.
His biological
He would
clock
go
kept
naturally.
going past the international dateline
Yeah.
so many times. It was all no, what's the word? It was all.
Go lie down, no lie.
Well, whatever.
Cyclic. He
Go on.
writes in the Bob Marshall interview.
Go lie
he
down.
talks about the whole importance of cyclic rates.
Yeah.
And he lived the cyclic. He wouldn't let the society interrupt with his cyclic feelings.
Right. And it all hinged upon what he was working on, and he would just take his time to sleep. And when he was tired, he would just sleep. And so he would.
He actually wasn't living in nature. See, that's
Yeah, totally, man.
He wasn't
Totally.
living in nature. He was nature, but
It was his nature.
He took advantage of all the services that man had made at that point.
That's right.
That he could not have to worry, because a person in the medieval period had to go to sleep when it got dark.
Yeah.
There was no light, and they had to get up.
Yeah.
So Frank was really living in the beyond in terms of the most advanced effects one could do as a yogi in the technological environment.
That's totally right. Even in terms of lack of sleep for 36.
Right. You go for a day and a half straight.
42 hours. Like
you guys would be sleeping, right, and coming in and out.
I can remember just sleeping on that couch in there.
Oh, you'd stay there?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. Oh, you bet.
You had to.
You betcha.
And he'd still be working while you're
and for
sleeping.
for a man that did no drugs,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and just he was driven, man. And I've never met anybody like that.
No,
I didn't know like
that there were driven people like that.
I didn't know Beethoven.
Yeah.
I didn't.
You met him though. You met him. You fucking met him. That's my point. Is that he was the greatest composer. He was the driven artist, and he and Beefheart knew that, and they would describe their concepts. There was a great quote by Beefheart, or one of them, saying, "I don't believe that Mozart was this refined guy that the Academy teaches.
Yeah.
He was," and Beefheart described himself, he was a wild man.
Total wild man.
And he had that energy. And the counterculture magazines about 969, Miles, the British guy who would do these great interviews, the first great interviews with Zappa, he had a picture of Zappa, the profile, and he looked just like Beethoven. That's what really, I said,
Oh,
"This
yeah.
guy's Beethoven," you know? And then
But I go along with you with Mozart.
he was a wild man.
Yeah.
But no, it's not that they were silly and irresponsible.
No.
They had a manic. They were in
They were
touch
driven,
with
man.
because they were in touch with the present and the implications of the present. I mean, was it Beethoven celebrating Napoleon? Then he found out that Napoleon fucked up. So he said, "Okay, fuck that," because it's not that this is a precious piece of music. The news changed.
Right.
You got to change the music.
Mhm.
He's not operating on some abstract principle. He's responding to the present.
Well,
and it's political.
Yeah, like there's a sonata of Beethoven that It's called Les Adieux, and then slash Le Bebel. And
What does that
well,
mean?
in other words, when Napoleon let go of the troops,
Yeah.
it was dedicated to that,
Right.
and Beethoven respected him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But when he
And
turned
that's
around,
Les Adieux, which
Les Adieux,
means,
yeah, which means the goodbye.
Okay.
But it's
Then-
like then he got really pissed
Yeah,
off
yeah.
when Napoleon did the nasty, and he changes it to Le Bebel, which is like
That's German.
yeah, it means sort of like later. You know what I mean?
Really?
Get out of here. You know?
Later, buddy.
It means it's goodbye, but
Yeah.
another tone
Oh,
of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's like an unsentimental, a mean goodbye.
A mean goodbye.
But get out of
Get
here,
out of here,
yeah.
you motherfucker. Right.
So that's a yin yang right there in the
Totally,
title.
totally.
So les autres, that word is
Les
a
adieux.
German word. It sounds like
Le Bebel, yeah.
no, the first word.
Les Adieux is French.
Yeah, it's French.
Right.
So French
he-
German.
Yeah, exactly.
Then there's even the linguistic metaphor.
With a
there, the two
nationalistic
cultures.
kind of thing. Yes.
Now the you just threw me.
And it's a great sonata too.
Right. Okay. We're talking about this Beethoven energy, the present. You never met a driven man. There was a thought I was going to do. I'm going to switch tracks.
All right.
In light, I think we've done enough to do into this. What was he driven about, and the fact that he was operating in the invisible realm, the beyond realm, which was neither man or machine. You know, it was whatever this situation. Well, it was machine, but he had a detachment, so he could use both senses and and computer senses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do we have the Bob Marshall thing, the Pauline Oliveri quote?
No, I'll get it.
Okay, you get that, but I'm going to read this. Look at this section. This is Frank talking. Look at this as symbolic. He's describing his work, his life. The piece, meaning his whole life composition.
Mhm.
The piece was made for synclavier digital dust, which is a technical term, but look at the dust. Remember Beefheart, the dust flows forward, the dust flows
Mhm.
back.
Mm.
It's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
when you look at the G page, G-spot tornado, but this is a technical term. Do you know about these terms? Is this after your time with the synclavier?
No,
You know
I'm
this.
familiar with this.
The
now.
G page on the synclavier, you'll see note names and numbers, but that's not all that lives on a track. Think of the beyond of your theme.
Subterranean
Yeah.
information. Thank
There's
you very much.
subterranean information which can only be viewed when you go out of the user-friendly, the love zone. You
That's
know,
right. The secure,
yeah, the secure.
mommy nipple.
Dave
Yeah.
Coronado, he wasn't into taking risks. The first mothers, you know.
Mhm.
Okay. You go out of the user-friendly part of the machine and the mysterious world of XPL programming, which is a technical thing, right?
Mhm.
But he means the hidden, subterranean. At that point, you can see these things that live on the track that are giving these secret instructions.
To the
handshake-
machine.
Yeah, to the machine. You're not even
Right.
part
You're
of
not.
it.
You're now in on the artery of that
Yeah.
machine, man.
Now-
Watch out for
now
that
look at
blood.
that. Think of Frank the conductor giving his secret instructions to you guys. You're the machine. Yet he's talking from the perspective of the guy, the center scrutinizer is watching this. And in the central, Joe's garage, the opening shows the little UFO object, but you can see the strings and the
That's
guy
right.
in the green
That's
shirt
right, the
running.
puppeteer.
Yeah, think of Frank as a puppeteer, not as the guy who's talking to you and telling you what to do,
Mhm.
because he's watching.
Because you know what? It's like when it says the subterranean area.
Right.
When the machine, you're inside that.
You're-
It's like that is the biggest risk to take when you think about it, because you have to like get yourself into the mindset that you're in control, but you're not in.
You're looking for
Yeah.
what can show up.
What can you do that is going to make this?
The world talk back to you and then learn something or
That's right.
experience something
And
new.
that's a crucial point about us as part of the organic process as musicians
Yeah.
with Frank. It's the same difference, only now
Yeah.
it was with a real machine.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's
it's a
why
metaphor.
that's why it's not. It's Ben Watson makes the point that with Duke Ellington you couldn't tell who was contributing and who not, and it's relevant. It's not important whether Frank was the creator and he was ripping you off. That whole argument that Don Preston and some of the old others
Pardon me,
make.
but I don't go for that. I mean, I'm not part of that certain philosophy. I never.
That's what I'm saying.
I knew up front. Frank told me up front. You won't be. You'll be
No
lucky.
credit.
You'll be lucky if you get any publishing working with
Right.
me. You'll be lucky if you get any songwriting. Yeah. So don't expect that. I take care of you, and you know. I knew that up front. And I remember my first year in the band. Terry Bozzio told me, Tommy, like you don't have to give so much, man. And I couldn't damn help myself. You know what I mean?
He's actually warning you.
Terry
to
said,
hold back, hold back.
Terry told me to hold
Don't
back.
give so much. This guy's a monster. He'll get you.
And I didn't care because
Yeah.
at that point, you know, when I listen to the stuff that I'm on and that people have, and that they know my signature in the band, that's all I was looking for,
Yeah.
man, at that point in my life. You know what I
And
mean?
you can tell these guys, they come up and they quote you, they know your signature stuff, and
To be honest, I respect that, because if you're in the band, then you're in the band. Like, you should be doing that, really. Yeah. But then I can also understand the other side of it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I do respect that.
footwear and
Sure.
the other one,
Sure.
Yo Mama, is it? I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, they know you. You are known for that, and you're surprised that that's all they know about you is that. So
Yeah,
you do have your
right.
signature.
That-
You know
that-
what I mean?
That's right, and I don't feel ripped off.
That's
I
right.
feel like
But
it was
I
a
understand. Let's
conservatory.
not get that. Was the
Yeah,
thing
let's-
was
yeah.
that I was just thinking. They did a retrospective of modern art at the Guggenheim, pop art. And the question that the Rauschenberg and Warhol came in, they questioned originality. They didn't even concern about being original. Warhol said, "I want to be a machine."
Mm.
Don Preston is the previous World War II generation. He was way older than Frank, you know,
Mhm.
very old guy. They still were interested in that ego original modernist thing, not
Mhm.
postmodernist. And
Mhm.
you are the later band being
Bang.
postmodern. Big bang.
Big bang.
Yeah. You being the later bang were of the big no, were more postmodernists, instinctively grew up later, were more passive in a sense, not worried about the ego and creating like that 19th century thing. You guys just wanted to dance and be part of the party,
That's
so to
right,
speak.
man.
Okay? So what happens is some people say the 80s band, they're just a machine compared to the eccentric individual personalities of the grandmothers and the previous mothers. But the point is the 80s band, as I tell Dave Wally, was the greatest bloody music
Fucking hey.
that was ever made, and you never heard it, Wally. You stopped going to concerts in '78, and you can only get a glimpse of it on the albums, the bootlegs, and those things that are great because they show you what went on every night. And that reminds you something that nobody knew about this band. This was incredible. If Frank was the greatest musician, what was it? We know that the culture establishment had to stop it, but I find it very interesting that they had to suppress Frank. They did not want anybody to know, and luckily Frank was able to still continue
That's right.
in the decentralized society.
That's right. He found the tributaries to paddle down.
Yeah, and he could keep doing it, and those who were lucky saw it. Every time I saw him, I said, "This is a bloody UFO going on here. This is unbelievable, this band." You know what I mean? And everybody, even Coltrane, and Coleman and anybody, they paled. And you had downbeat slugs on, talking about the latest jazz guys coming up, and all this political and musically correct stuff. And Frank, and you were part of that. That's the great experience, and that's why you didn't care about what credit you got. You wanted to be on the boat.
That's
the
right,
party,
man.
You know
That's
what I mean?
right,
And that
man.
was the privilege. Okay, let's go back to the
Not only that, I wanted to be fighting those lions.
That's
You know,
the
and
warrior
it's
thing.
part of a soldier.
You
know
wanted
what
to
I mean?
help.
I felt like I was a soldier with
Yeah.
Frank, in a new kind of
Post
game.
music,
In a
post
new kind
music,
of,
yeah, new
post
kind
music
of game,
baby.
yeah.
And the thing is that it still amazes me
Yeah.
that people think of Frank in a musical realm.
That's right.
He is so far beyond even like spirituality. It's like this.
Well, he was what an artist does. An artist is
He
a
was an
scapegoat.
alchemist, for Christ's sake.
He was Christ. He was the second coming. He was the scapegoat martyr, acting out what the culture needs.
Yeah,
the purgative function.
Absolutely.
The Eleanor Anima bandit. He
Yes,
gave us the
right.
purgation.
Purge me,
Yeah,
baby, I'm
purge
grooving you.
And what's the phrase? I'm pluking.
What?
Did he go, I'm pluking you?
I'm grooving you.
Oh, grooving you.
No, pluking. I wouldn't want to quote Frank on that realm.
Now, Bob Marshall did the greatest interview. As soon as it went 3.5 hours, and after Frank says, I want to copy that, I'm going to put it out as an album. This interview surprised him on October 8. I don't know if you read it. But the point is, the first question Bob Marshall asks is, and it's the perfect question, it's the question that needs to be asked, what is music? In other words, you went back to square one because you had to realize that Frank may not be necessarily a musician.
Absolutely.
Right. So that triggered off. I'm very proud of that question. What
To
is
start an
music?
interview like that took balls, man.
Yeah, like what are you? It's like I'm looking at an alien, or I'm an alien just talking to a human, going, what is this thing you humans do?
Right.
Which
What is
Frank
this
would-
laughter thing?
Yeah,
that's- What's that all
Why
about?
do you guys go like this? You know?
Yeah.
And Frank would love it because that was the sensibility he was as a puppeteer.
That's
Look,
brilliant, man.
Yeah.
It's totally brilliant.
Okay, so we're back into this. At that point you can see these things that live on the track that are giving. The things that live on the track is Frank, the conductor, giving these secret instructions to Tommy Myers and the band, telling it what to do, right?
Mhm.
Which was the whole rehearsal process and the training, and then the adaptation within every night with the different audiences.
Mm-hmm.
One classification of these secret instructions is something called G numbers. in the computer,
Mhm.
which would be derived from plugging in a guitar. In other words, that was the effect of a technical gizmo you would do.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is the metaphor thing. This is the metaphor of Frank taking new technologies to alter the
Kind of like a boob
program.
job.
Right? That means what? A boob.
Like
Oh,
a-
you mean silicon? You know?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I forgot about the humans. Oh yeah, those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean
Those
tits?
humans.
Well, always remember Frank once mentioned about
Dollops of silicon.
somebody said something about tits, some woman to her, and he goes, "Well, you grew those things."
Right.
That's an alien. You grew them. You know, the girl never thought she grew them. I thought it was so original. They go, you grew them. What are you complaining about?
That's right.
As if you had a choice.
That's
Well, I'm not
right.
going to grow them. You know? So
Well, hold on 2 secs. All right, yeah, we'll do a little bit more because I've got an absolutely fuming dog staring at me, wanting to go and run around the field. So, yeah, we'll do a bit more. But yeah, let's go.
So okay, it's like a boob job. You're saying it's the mutating of it,
Mhm.
a new technology, and he's studying one classification of these secret structures is something called G numbers. That's a particular effect from a techno innovation. They have this guitar unit that you can plug in besides recording the note you play. He's always talking about what the other effect. Besides recording the note you play, it records a bunch of data in the form of G numbers. So we found a way to convert bunches of G numbers into note blanks. And G numbers occupy points in time. Note, Frank, is all about what time is it. That's his
Mhm.
main question.
Mhm.
They indicate that something happened. They indicate. We're trying to read what this subterranean.
Do you know what's good about this, matey? Is he's still got like almost like a childlike admiration. Like he's managed to keep that, like he's excited by, yeah, just understanding, which I'm kind of a bit like, but I don't kind of I don't kind of show it. But like I say, the drummers of Frank Zappa thing was there's loads of things in that where I was like, yeah, that's like, yeah, they just put things into words where you go, oh. But yeah, he truly does have an excitement and like, yeah, like I say, a childlike um awe.
They indicate it's like I went into freakout culture, L.A. '65, and I'm trying to see what's happening
No,
to
this
them.
is intense. They
Yeah.
indicate that something
Something
happened
happened.
on the guitar string at a certain point in time. It takes a little piece of eternity and slices it up.
Which is Frank.
What is music? What is life?
What is the big note? It's all one composition. He's describing himself.
That's right.
And he's saying this computer is doing what he thinks he's doing, right? But he's watching the computer do it. It takes just to continue, it takes a little piece of eternity, slices it up,
Ooh.
and if your finger moved, there's a G number. You give your hand signal
Mhm.
that says what your finger did besides just playing the note. Isn't that incredible? So we convert this dust. This is all dust stuff. You know what I mean? Into something that I could then edit for pitch, and the dust indicated a rhythm.
Mhm.
So what I did was take the rhythm of the dust, of the nothing, and impose a pitch data on the dust, and thereby move the inaudible G number into the world of audibility with a pitch name on it. That's how Magnesium Dress was built.
Mhm.
Now, with that in mind, that's he's doing that in the middle 80s. Yeah, that's the middle 80s,
84,
yeah. Okay, now in this interview Bob Marshall did, Bob Marshall asked him, where I get the idea part, I'm asking about his idea part. I remember you did an interview in the LA Free Press in summer of '69, and you mentioned Pauline Oliveri. Are you familiar with her work?
No.
Okay. She's, what would you say, Jerry? Classify
Avant-garde experimental composer.
of the '60s, like on the John Cage,
Still.
in the John Cage zone, right?
Still, yes.
Okay. And Frank mentions this interview in the interview in the LA Free Press, summer '69. After saying, the first guy opens up, says, your music is like Zap Comics, you know, R. Crumbs. And he goes, oh yeah, he agreed totally with Zap Comics. But now he brings up this other point. Frank says, Frank mentions Pauline Oliveri's work with sound, where Pauline worked with above the audible and below, creating a mass in the middle. And I'm Bob Marshall saying, and you like that idea, Frank, and expand on this Pauline Oliveri idea. And he goes, not that it created a mass, it created something audible. It produced a sum and difference tone which happened to be located within the audible frequency range. By combining something so high you couldn't hear it, and something so low you couldn't hear it, and something so low you couldn't hear it, it yielded something in the middle that you could hear.
Right.
Reference back to this.
Mhm.
20 years later
Mhm.
almost.
Mhm.
Whether or not you like what you hear in the middle is another question. The concept is brilliant. Pauline Oliveri.
Just psychoacoustically, it's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a note, Frank already has his own intuitions. When he saw her, that gave him a signpost to direct what he was already intuiting. So it was useful to him. And so I go, yeah, because it showed you how physical reality is, or the way it is, right? And Frank goes, it's one aspect of it. And I go, are there other aspects you could talk about? If you buy the idea that the vibrational rates, think of Lumpy Gravy, those early vibrational themes, if you buy the idea that vibrational rates translate into matter, and then if you understand the concept of vibrational rates above perception and below perception combining to create a reality, that opens up the door to some pretty science fiction matter possibilities. Remember, you always want to do a science fiction Broadway musical.
Absolutely.
Think of the central scrutinizer of the image. If you can create an audible reality by a sine wave above the range of what your ear can hear, and another one from below, and you put them together and suddenly it creates something that your ear can detect, is it not possible that solid matter of an unknown origin could manifest periodically because of frequencies of some unknown nature above and below which for short durations manifest solid objects? It could explain a lot of strange things that people see. And then I go, or Bob Marshall says, UFOs come to mind immediately. Yeah. Now, that's the con.
Yeah. Now here's another way of what he's basically saying. Because my mate, do you know what I mean? Being older, did a university course on music and engineering and recording. And there's a couple of things he said to me like that I remembered. One of them was the difference between analog and digital is like 1 hertz in 3 billion, but yet your ear still detects that. But they were saying, I don't know whether that's, I might have got that wrong, but it's something like that. But then there's another one where he said there's a certain level, a certain volume that you can play something where your ear can't detect it. Basically, if you put something at this level, this specific level, and just played it in a room with people, they would all get on edge, like as if something's about to happen. But it's because their ear can sense something, but it can't hear it, can't make it out, but it can pick up something. It's picking up something. So you could basically freak out a room full of people just by playing this like at a certain frequency. So there's like, well, he's saying something is a frequency that your ear can't hear. And then to one you can, blending them together, it's making it you can. So therefore, the imprint of the one that you can't is on the one that you can. Therefore, bringing something. Yeah, I get what he's saying, but yeah, like I say, you can baffle a human by doing that, by playing something at a certain. But then also, this is what I was thinking with what they just said there is that when it Nikola Tesla who said, was it Nikola Tesla who said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, then you have to understand it in vibrations, frequencies, and something else. So yeah, something like that. But it's like we are a frequency. We're all a frequency. There's a church. I remember watching this documentary, and it's designed in a way that if you sit in a certain place, like the organ in this church is in a certain position, and if you sit in a certain place in that church, you can basically, it feels like, because how it's bouncing off of the walls and how how the organ sounds and people singing, how it all comes to one point, can basically, if you sit in the right place, basically make you feel like your outerness, your outline, or your skin dissolves, and you become like, yeah, you have kind of no edges and no boundaries, because you become like, it's as if the frequency is taking you over. And obviously, if you are a religious person and you're sat in that place, you're going to have, that's basically you having God, which is what I think Nick Cave. Anyway, I could talk for days about what they're talking about, but yeah, I see what Zappa's saying with the frequency you can't hear, one you can, put them together, make something you can hear, make something you can't hear, something you can. But yeah, let's go.
He's always working on it in all his work.
Mhm.
So what triggers off in your memory of conversations maybe approximating this? This is what we want evidence of.
Well, one thing that comes to mind immediately is I remember discussing a particular tour with Frank.
Now, what's the time? We need a timing on
Time frame is
this. 82?
I think around the early 80s, 81 or 82. I'm not certain, but
And
around that.
You're off the road.
We're
You're
off
back
the
at
road.
home.
We're rehearsing,
Yeah.
and Bennett comes in, or whoever was giving the data for the tour itinerary,
Glotzer?
speaking.
Bennett
Could have been
Glotzer?
Bennett Glotzer, and it could have been Larry Griffith, whatever. And Frank says, we're doing a lot of theaters. And I says, oh, cool, sounds so great. You know, like the Fox Theater in Atlanta, or the Palladium, or whatever. You know, I particularly love theaters.
But you're
Thanks.
discussing a tour coming up, not one that happened.
No, one that's coming up.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
and I'm saying, well, we'll have to do 2 shows, you know, type thing. And yeah, I mean, we're talking. And Frank says, you know, though, I like playing those big arenas, Tommy. And I says, yeah, we only have to do 1 show, right? And he says, no, man, I like to move a lot of air.
Ooh.
And I said, oh, your guitar. And he said, yeah, those low notes. He said, the air that moves with those low notes is like food, you know. And I just got that from a mere ego place, you know what I mean? Because it is powerful when you
can do that.
When you
Feel
can
the
actually
audience responding,
It's
right?
not even just the audience.
The
it's
environment, the climate.
the whole climate.
Your weather
man.
modification, man. That's what you're doing.
It's like kind of like doing a test rocket and then doing like the real thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and the versus that versus the. I don't quite know what I'm trying to say, but it's like the mass that's involved in that is so fulfilling and so it stretches you, you know, because you're not part of just this environment of this
You see,
concert.
That's a psychic effect, isn't it? It's physical.
It's a
We're talking about the inaudible
It's
above and
psychic.
below.
It's totally
What he's talking about here.
psychoacoustic effect,
That's why
man.
this evokes that. Now let me throw some.
So
Oh, pause there.
another thing that
Hold on.
is very, very apropos to this conversation is Zappa as an orchestrator.
Yeah. You mean live conducting?
No, I mean
The
an
arranger?
I mean an orchestrator. An orchestrator is one who takes the written piece of a composer
Right.
and not necessarily arranges it, but in essence, it is an arrangement of the instruments that will
Right.
be used in this particular idiom. And
Tommy gets back on his weight over the guys.
and let me say that let me say beyond anything, Frank was probably one of the most brilliant poets of an orchestra, and I say orchestra in the loose, the general,
Yeah.
large term. He had
He
visions.
was a
It wasn't-
satellite conductor.
it wasn't-
He was a satellite
It was a
conductor.
satellite conductor. He
That's
was
a
right.
satellite.
That's right.
Yeah. That's what you're trying to
You know,
say.
Frank was like NASA, point nine.
Have you heard the music makers document? Okay.
Let me finish
Yeah.
this thought, if you will.
Yeah.
The way Frank uses instruments, like for instance, a contrabass instrument, or like say for instance, a contrabassoon,
Yeah.
and a piccolo. You have this swamp, Hades kind of like fiery, stenchful gunk of a bassoon down
Right.
there,
Yeah.
way down.
I mean, he made it like that, or that's a given?
This is a given.
Yeah,
The
all right.
instrument's
Yeah.
vocabulary
Yeah,
is
right.
there.
Yeah.
With a piccolo up here, you know, I mean, up to the practically register.
Right.
And this is, I mean, in terms of just traditional instruments, I'm
Yeah.
speaking, not what this is talking about in the mass grand
But
scheme of
within
things.
music,
But within
he
the
was
musical
doing that.
confines, he would do that. Or with my Taurus bass pedals, when he found out that I had a set of Taurus bass pedals, he never had heard of those before. And I was trying to get a set of B3 pedals, voltage controlled at Manny's, and I walked in one day, this was still when I was in Connecticut, and they had a set of bass pedals. It was only an octave, but I said, holy shit, I don't even have to do any modification. I'll just buy these.
Jeez.
I had the first set in the world, actually. and they had just come in. And then when I joined the band, I already had my bass pedals. I'd been using them for a couple of years. He loved that low fucking C on that instrument.
Yeah.
He would just, and I would be so like wanting to. Oh, this is bringing up another topic here
Good.
too. That I would. He said, just hold that C, man. Just hold. That's like an instrument before basses could go down to C's. Only synthesis could do
Yeah.
that. And it's just like I could have been a paraplegic doing it with my dick, just
Yeah,
just
yeah.
stomping that fucking note down. And in an arena,
Yeah.
not outside in a stadium. That's just more people. But in an arena, in
In
a
a
sports
closed
box,
space.
in a sports box, the biggest place you could possibly be that's still confined.
Yeah.
That feeling, man, it's like something else. UFO.
Yeah.
You feel that.
Yeah.
It's not something you know about or can have an expectation.
It's weird you say that because Tomorrow Never Knows, the Beatles song, is C. It's just C all the way through, one chord. But that song has a feel to it that like he says, you have a feeling, you have a physical feeling go through your body when you hear that song. But yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd just throw that in. It's weird that they said C. And yeah, like I say, that is just one. Tomorrow Never Knows. Think of that Beatles song. How, if you don't, I mean, you got to know that Beatles song, and it's a great Beatles song. And yeah, it's just one chord all the way through. But yeah, let's go.
But it's something that just happens. Who knows what occurs when these kind of frequency juxtapositions
Which is
happen?
what- yeah.
We know in acoustics, Bob, that when two notes are simultaneously played together, we have a combination tone that occurs. When they're at mass extremities like that, the potential for any kind of physical manifestation of
Effect.
that can be exponentially increased because of the distances.
Yeah.
And I think that Frank, in a traditional sense of orchestration, used that, but in a farther sense of an experiential, just challenging our version of nature, he was on the verge of something, man. He was
That's right,
totally on
right,
the verge
right.
of something.
Okay.
When
let me
he would tell
interrupt.
the guys from
Okay.
Ensemble Modern to have these priceless French horns, rub those bastards against the floor. They do it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
who knows why
Yeah,
Frank was,
yeah,
he knew,
yeah.
he valued instruments. I remember times when I would burn holes in the keyboard and he'd notice it 3 years
Man.
later and said,
Yeah, he'd find you.
yeah, right. But the fact is that he was doing that for a reason.
Yeah.
Sure, the sonic value was
Yeah.
there, but there was something else, and it wasn't a sadistic thing. He was searching for this thing,
Great.
man.
He had gone into the see, we have sound, and then you have recorded sound. That's a not new way of sound. So he worked in the interval between natural sound and recorded sound, plus the effects of doing them together in the architectural 20th century environment.
Mhm.
Therefore, he was molding. Now, I want to show.
Yeah, what he said there as well is, yeah, if you've ever recorded or tried to record music, there is a difference. Especially now, I think analog probably was properly suited better for recording because you do get much more of a warm, real feeling off of like if you record on a tape than if you record on digital. It's almost like you go on digital, but then when you go digital and you record, like say if you want to record a folk song now, it just doesn't sound right. And you kind of have to go from the digital back to a more analog sound by turning things, whereas analog was actually perfect. Well, not perfect, but far better than digital at recording, yeah, a live thing, like live sound. That's so true that there is a big difference. Something happens once it goes on the recording, it just doesn't sound as like real. But yeah, anyway, that's part 2. We will be carrying on. But yeah, that's the reactions. We